folks, and welcome to the future location of the Westport and Shelter Cove Railway. Now, I posted a video a little while back about my previous train layout and mentioned that once I dismantled it, I was going to start construction on a new one. Well, this is it! I've started it, and I'm going to be posting regular update videos so you can follow along on my progress. This is going to be the first of those update videos, and I'm just going to give you a quick rundown on what I've done up to this point. Alright folks, this is the layout, and right now, as you can see, it's just benchwork. This is a lattice work of wood with 1/8" plywood on both sides, topped with 2 half-inch layers of pink insulation foam. Now, as you can see here, the layout is actually split into 3 sections. You have a joint here and a joint here. That's so that it can be taken apart to be moved. I'm not going to be in this house forever, and ideally I'd like to be able to take each section outside to work on the messy scenery stuff. They are held together with latches under here. If I take that off, I can pull the sections apart, and there's another latch on the back. This is a slightly different latch, but you have to take both of those off and then you can separate the sections. Now, I have not yet laid any track. This is just Bachmann Easy Track that I was using to mark out where the track's gonna go. I've actually done that around the entire layout. What I did was measure essentially waypoints for where the curve is gonna change. This entire thing is designed with Atlas 18-inch radius track in mind, so I could just mark out the waypoints and then use the Bachmann Easy Track to essentially interpolate between the waypoints and figure out exactly where the track was gonna go. This section here is gonna be a very gentle flex trap curve from here to there, so I'm just gonna have to mark that out when I'm laying the roadbed. I bought a whole bunch of Atlas HO Code 100 sectional track for this, as well as a whole bunch of Atlas HO Code 100 flex track. I'm gonna use the flex track mostly for the straight sections, and the sectional track mostly for the curves, which are all 18-inch radius. I also bought some Pico turnouts, and I'm gonna use these for a yard, which is gonna be roughly here. Maybe I'll put a screenshot of the track plan in here. Now, this is actually a really old Atlas turntable that I got off a friend for $5, but I have custom fitted it with a motor. This is actually an old servo motor that I modified. I took out the end stop so it rotates continuously. And since this is one of the old Atlas turntables, it has this really clever system that mechanically makes it so that it always lands on exactly the right stall. It's pretty loud, which is not ideal, but hopefully once it's glued in place, that'll quiet down a little bit. Anyway, as you can see, it lines up perfectly every time, and we can actually adjust the speed by changing the voltage. This is probably a little bit faster than it's going to run in the final setup. Now let's talk a little bit about scenery. You can see that I have marked out in tape here where there's going to be an ocean. The white marks basically where I'm going to start the cut, and then the blue marks where the actual water line is going to be. So it's going to sort of slope down like that toward the water line. And then right here, I'm going to have a lighthouse, which I've actually already bought the kit for. This is a Walther's kit. I haven't actually built this yet. See, as you can see, this is still just a kit, so it does look a little bit plasticky, but let's see what I can do about that. I might paint it, I might not. And then over here in this big blank empty space is going to be a drive-in movie theater with a working screen. I have yet to figure out how I'm going to do that. Before we wrap up this little update video, as I'm sure you've all been waiting to see, let's talk about the trains. Now, I've actually been teaching myself how to paint and letter locomotives, and I have 5 locomotives painted and lettered for the Westport and Shelter Cove, which is a fictional railroad, by the way, in case that wasn't clear. This is a Bachmann 460 10-wheeler. This lettering was done with clear water slide decal paper. What I do is I print it black everywhere that I want black and clear where I want the letters, and then I use a gold Sharpie behind the decal on the surface, lay the decal over it, and then the gold shows through the transparent spots and you get gold text and gold lining. And then I use a spray clear coat, which is a real pain in the neck to use, but it's worth it to cover the whole thing. It hides the edges of the decal, and it looks very nice. I've also done a few other engines. This is a Bachmann Alco 260 Mogul, and I've made quite a lot of modifications to this one over the years. The headlight used to be up here and it used to be somewhat undersized. This headlight, which does not work unfortunately, is off of a Mantua engine. Lettering I did the same way as on that one with the decal paper, except that this one I used white decal paper instead of clear because I wanted white letters. The toner from the printer did flake a little bit around the edges, so I covered that with black paint, and then the clear coat hides the seams. This is number 38. My numbering scheme for these is roughly in terms of a West Coast short line, how many engines they normally had, and I'm just doing them sort of based on how old the engine is. The newer ones are getting higher numbers. It's pretty vague art. Anyway, this was originally a Bachmann 262 Prairie in the Southern paint scheme, but these are actually based on an 060 prototype. Bachmann just added a leading and trailing truck, so I took those off, so now it's an 060 again. I like the green. I've actually touched this up a bit. I gave it black running boards, black piping, so I've increased the detail level a little bit, paint-wise anyway. I did the same gold lettering thing on the tender. I don't have a color laser printer, so in order to do this, I had to make the lettering on a black background. This particular engine sort of has special meaning to me because it's a near duplicate of my very first model locomotive that I got when I was 4 years old. Next up, this is actually the newest model here, but the oldest prototype. This is an 1890s 280. The model is from Athearn Trains, and I actually made a review of this for the website of BC Shaver and Hobbies where I work. So I did my gold lettering thing again here, and on the tender, I gave it this sort of ornate trim around the lettering that's actually borrowed off of a Virginia and Truckee engine. I did the same thing with the number. I also did gold lining on the headlight, the running boards, the handrails, a whole bunch of stuff, the cylinders, and even the ladder on the rear of the tender. So it took me quite a while to get this one looking the way I liked it. Oh, I also put white walls on the drivers using a white paint pen. I think those look really good. Final engine, for now at least, is the only diesel locomotive in my collection, which is a Baldwin VO1000. The paint for this one got a little bit weird. My original plan was to have the lettering along the side of the hood like any normal diesel locomotive, but my attempt to do that went horribly wrong. I ended up having to strip all the paint off, and I'd run out of black paint at that point, so I was like, well, why not give it a little splash of color and make the hood green. Since I can't really do text on a green background with the way that I do lettering, I decided to just put it on the cab like a steam engine and like some other diesels that I'd seen, and to spice things up a bit, do silver on the running boards. And I did that with a Sharpie, and like all the other Sharpie ones, I've hand applied a very thin acrylic clear coat over the Sharpie so that it doesn't rub off. So that's going to be the basic fleet of the Westport and Shelter Cove. I actually have one more engine over here, a Bachmann 280 that's waiting on a new tender. It doesn't fit on the turntable with the old tender, and I've taken the shell off of it so that I can take the electronics out. I'm going to try to get one of those little short Vanderbilt tenders for it, give it a little bit of a Southern Pacific flavor. These passenger cars are currently lettered for the Sequoia Railroad, which is another fictional one, which was going to be the name of this for a while, but then I changed my mind, so I'm going to re-letter those. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Since this is going to be a fictitious tourist railroad, they're mostly going to be pulling these passenger cars, but I am going to have some freight cars, which are in a box somewhere in the other room, and I might try and letter some of those for it as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to bother with that. I do want to make a couple of Westport and Shelter Cove cabooses though, and maybe I'll make a video on those, I'm not sure. So that's basically it for the progress that I've made on the Westport and Shelter Cove. I think the next step is going to be wiring and starting to lay some track. I need to lay cork roadbed first, and then I'm going to lay track on top of that. Hopefully by the end of the next update video, we'll actually be able to run a train at least a short distance on this, if not all the way around. So stick around for that. Alright folks, well that wraps up this little update video. I don't normally say this, but if you do want to see more, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. No idea what my upload schedule is going to be like because I have to balance it with work and everything, but we will see, and I will see you next time.